Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you. That's depending where you are in the world. I'm here in London doing the nighttime devotion from the devotional Christ Triumphant. The title today, Importance of Choosing Our Location Carefully. The scripture reading comes from Genesis 13, verse 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. The eyes of Abraham's understanding were not closed when he decided that the best thing he could do was to separate from Lot, although he had been to him as a father. But contention and strife he could not endure, even among the herdsmen. He could not have his peace of mind disturbed by unpleasant differences. Separation was painful to him, but it must be. Abraham gave Lot the choice of where he would go so that afterward Lot should not be tempted to think that in the separation Abraham had his own interest in view. Lot chose a beautiful location near Sodom. The land of his choice possessed every natural advantage, but he failed to investigate the morals and religion of the Sodomites. We have on record his after history. The time came when he had to flee from the corrupt city, which was dark with crime of every stripe and type. He was permitted to warn his daughters and sons-in-laws, but they would not heed his warning any more than they had heeded his instruction. They mocked at his faith in God, and they perished in the destruction of Sodom. This is a lesson for us all. We should move carefully in the selection of homes for our families. We should seek the help of the Lord in the training of our children and their choice of a life work. Every family should constantly look to God, trusting in Him to guide aright. Sharp discrimination is necessary in order to avoid following a wrong course for the sake of worldly gain. The Lord's will is to be our will. God must be made first and last and best in everything. We are to be as teachable as a little child, moving carefully and with entire trust in God. Our eternal interests are involved in the steps we take, whether we move heavenward toward the city whose maker and builder is God, or earthward towards Sodom's beautiful attractions. God does not consult our opinions or preferences. He knows what human beings do not know, the future results of every movement, and therefore our eyes should be directed to Him and not to the worldly advantages presented by Satan. So the title, The Importance of Choosing Our Location Carefully. We know, and it refers back, not obviously, but it refers back to Abraham and Lot. And the fact that they had to separate, and Abraham, as was said, gave Lot the choice because he didn't want to seem to be biased or using his older having his prerogative as the older person, as like the father figure. So he gave Lot the choice, And Lot chose the better land, understandably in that respect. But as was said, he did not see what Sodom was like and how it would, and as it did, grow into a bigger city, which would eventually envelope him. And it was more of a selfish aspect that Lot chose, from more of a selfish perspective. And of course, Abraham was happy to go the other way because I suppose he couldn't foresee any dangers of where he went. But who would know? Who would know what's going to happen in the next 2, 5, 10 years' time? And we're not giving any indication as to the time expanse between when they moved there and then the time they had to leave. Or at least I don't think we are. But as is said, we need to choose carefully where we choose to live, what area, what city, what location. As most parents would want to go somewhere where they've got, where are the schools? How would the children get to school if I'm going to work? How are the children, are there buses, are there trains, etc.? You take all to that into consideration. But these days, I don't think people take into consideration. I suppose some do. What's the neighbourhood like? Is it full of crime? Or people do look into that as well. But I don't think anyone takes into consideration, especially in this country, is it a God-fearing place or not? Because that's not the case anymore. And I like the fact that it said, God must be made first, last, and best in everything, in our choices, in our decisions. And we should remain teachable like a child, moving carefully and with entire trust in God. Because our eternal interests are involved in the steps we take. Because every step we take, every decision we make, either draws us closer or further away from heaven. And unless we consult God about it, we won't actually know until much further down the line. But God knows before we make the decision. So what's your next move? Where are you going to go next? And who are you going to consult?